Faster than writing to a letter forum. More thoughtful than angry clickbait. Able to discuss the world's first superhero and comics, film, TV, and more. It's the Super Maniacs, and we are super excited today. This is going to be our spoiler discussion of the new Superman movie. I'm Fatheree. This is Mike. Mike, how are you doing today? And I see, like, if you're watching us on camera, we have a cameo of David Cornswett's Superman here with us. So.
No, I'm doing really good. I've had this figure this whole time. Before people are like, "Where'd you get?" No, I've had it. You've watched the past ones. You've seen me mess around with it here and there. No, I'm just even more excited than normal, type of thing, because I've been wanting to talk about this movie at length for a while. Because I've been running into people in public who've seen it, but you can only say so many things in public before you're like,
right.
Okay, you got to shush. You got to shush your face before somebody overhears what we're about to say.
It's like that, especially like if you're just stepping out of the theater, you know, like I'm always nervous about talking about a movie in the theater because for all I know, like I'm seeing people in line to catch like the next showing. So.
Oh, I was thinking of that Simpsons gag. Have you ever seen that one?
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but that must be the reason why I have this concern. But yeah, go ahead and tell the story.
For people who don't know, there's a Simpsons gag where it cuts to Homer and Marge right after watching The Empire Strikes Back, and they walk past the line of people, and he goes, "I can't believe Darth Vader was his father the whole time," and just everybody in line's like, "Hey, what the?"
Oh man, yeah, it was pretty funny.
And I think back to that line. I think back to that moment a lot because that is very much like that is a real danger that can actually happen on opening weekend of anything. So you gotta be really careful.
So much of those early Simpsons episodes, I don't even realize how embedded that programming is in my brain until someone points it out. But yeah, I guess for years I would watch Simpsons before bed at 9 p.m. on Fox 7 out of Austin. That was my ritual, my nightly ritual from like 1994 until like 2001, I think. So,
yeah, that was one of the reasons I watched as much Simpsons was because of the reruns of the Simpsons that they would play. Because right after my parents watched the news, so it was just something I could watch prior to the news starting. So, and it was an easy thing to be like, "Whoa, you just leave it here," and then the news starts right after. And you're like, okay, cool.
And now that we're older, we can see like, oh yeah, that show really does predict the future a lot. Like we were talking about this. We were talking about this earlier, but the monkeys on typewriters meme that you sent me earlier.
That one's being shared everywhere. Not one specific spot. The blurst of times. Stupid monkey.
But yeah, speaking of this movie. And the stupid monkeys. That is one thing. Like now, like if we ever see something else in Metropolis, they should have like these internet troll monkeys like running around talking.
Oh,
shit.
I've been on threads, and every single person's like, ever since I saw this movie, anytime I see anything that's the dumbest take I've ever seen in my life, that'll be their first thought from now
on. But yeah, we have a lot to unpack in this thing, so we're gonna do
so much. Full-on
spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie yet, what are you doing with your life? Run to the nearest theater and watch it. It is I would say great film. I see opinions tend to vary. Things are mostly positive. There's a little bit of disagreement, I guess, in like how good of a movie it is. But most people who aren't like a hater who was never going to like this movie to begin with seem to have a positive reaction to it.
Yeah, among my friends, everybody's very positive. There's a few naysayers here and there, but it's not like, again, I can't fully blame them because a lot of the movie asks for suspension of disbelief right away, and some people have a hard time with that, especially if they feel like they're missing something. Because, and then I've seen friends of friends be upset, and then and then you've just, the usual people that are going to lose their minds. And I've seen just middle ground, a lot of middle ground. A lot of people just being like, I liked it a lot, but I didn't love it, type of thing, which is honestly way better than I expected because I was expecting to see way more haters overall. But I feel like I haven't seen as many as I thought I was going to.
Well, I guess we should start things off by just saying our kind of general reactions, our overall takeaway. I've now seen the movie 3 times, so I've seen it a lot. And I was a little worried because I liked it so much that first viewing, And I thought, okay, well, I already have tickets to see this movie twice later this week, and I'm probably not gonna like it as much as I did like that first time. There's no way it's gonna live up to like that level of enjoyment on a repeat viewing. And then the second time I watched it, I think I came out of the theater liking it even more.
I've heard
And,
that from multiple people so far who've seen it more than once.
and then the third time, I got to see it on the massive IMAX screen at the Bob Bullock Museum here in Austin, Texas. So the biggest screen in Texas. And then like after seeing it on that thing, I'm like, holy hell, that is the way to watch this movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that this weekend. It's gonna be my second time that I have a guaranteed second time this weekend. I'm trying to figure out if I'm gonna throw another one in between that because of the fact that like here's the thing. I've just been desperately wanting to see this movie again so goddamn badly. And the only reason I haven't is I've been broke spending my money on Superman essentially. No, but the thing is that like it's been a while since I've watched a movie and then craved it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just God, like, and then I keep talking to people about it, and they're like, "Oh, I'm watching it again soon with so and so or something," and I'm just like, "Take me with you."
But like especially these days where like there is so much media, like every franchise that we've ever cared about has like a new sequel or reboot or prequel or continuation or spin-off or whatever. It's just like, oh god, I can't, like it's hard to keep up with like Marvel and Star Wars are like good examples of like there's just been so much content pumped out the last decade. And yeah, like when you actually like, you know what, I really want to take time to rewatch something. That's when you know you really like it. That's when you know you love something.
100%. I watched because I watched Thunderbolts, I watched Captain America, those movies I watched. And I was like, I like them fine and kind of a thing, and the same with their shows, like a lot, or at least the most recent shows. I'm like, yeah, that was okay, and I watched that Jurassic World, that sort of thing, and every single one of those was like, I could take or leave it type of thing. I watched this, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna turn back around, sit down, and wait for it to start again, type of thing. Which we couldn't have done. I couldn't have done because I watched it at the early screening, but I wanted to really badly. Like I've been like reading up on it consistently. I've been keeping an eye on everybody. I've been listening to the soundtrack like nonstop because you can find it on YouTube now. Since the movie, a lot of times what happens is once the movie comes out, one of the labels posts the entire soundtrack, and so I've just been listening to that nonstop.
And on Spotify, they also have the character playlist that James Gunn has curated for
Oh, really?
various characters in the. Yeah, if you pull that up, Spotify will actually tell you whose musical taste you align with. Like, I got the engineer. She has a lot of like serious like techno music, which isn't like something I listen to a lot of, but I guess for some reason that's what the algorithms assigned to me.
That's interesting. No, I don't have Spotify, or else I would try using that. I use a lot of YouTube stuff, which is how I found out the soundtrack was out at all, because it popped up in my recommended. So I've been listening to I guess the track is just all the heroic themes in it, because it's not the way the Superman theme is, where it's just like the beginning of a song all the way to it's not the John Williams theme from the beginning to end, if that makes sense. I think I've shared it on Facebook. I don't know if you saw it and listened to it. Did you?
I've was it like a particular track or just like that
It's
whole
called
soundtrack?
it's called Look Up.
Uh, yeah, that's one of like the early tracks on there, right?
Yeah, the track is just like it's all the Superman like it's like the closest thing to the theme itself outright, if that makes sense. And it might be, for all I know, like it might be considered the theme all out for itself, because it's the John Williams song, but not like the way it is for, like it's not like a recreation of it from beginning to end. It's like this person's, it's the composer's like almost mix of it,
Yeah.
type of thing. And so
John Murphy, right?
John Murphy, yeah. And so there's these really cool sequences where, like, for instance, you'll be listening to it, and then in the background you'll hear like on like a very faint trombone parts of the John Williams theme going dun, 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 like at the same time. And it's just like, this is a fascinating version of this song, because I remember we were all like, it's just the John Williams song again. It really isn't. Like it is, but it's really its own fun, bombastic, very fusiony of like so many other Superman themes type thing. Because when I listened to it, my first thought was like, this reminds me of the way the Superman animated series theme like really plays itself. and I thought that was really fun. And then and then there's some hints of other stuff. Like I felt like there was a hint of My Adventures with Superman and a little Hans Zimmer in the mix there too. I was like, this is fascinating, and so I've been listening to it like nonstop. It's really cool. I highly recommend it if you guys haven't listened to it. The track's just called "Look Up."
But the way that they use that Williams music throughout the movie, they kind of like they deconstruct it. Like you were talking about like using like the dun 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 to kind of like build up, and then like a lot of times it's like that like dun 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 dun. But a lot of times they just have that like those first few notes before you even get to that part that it's weird. Like it's like the score of this movie, it stole the Williams music, whereas like Superman Returns just kind of borrowed it. Superman Returns, like we're just gonna play like the very similar array. Like in the opening, we're gonna try to make it match identically, to the daughter movies. We're borrowing that music, but like with this movie, I felt like no, like we're stealing. Like we're gonna like take ownership of this and pull it apart and play with it and rearrange it.
It's so fun because of it. It's such a fun version of it. Then because I remember the first time I heard it, I was disappointed, but now I'm like, no, this is exactly what you should do with this version of the song.
And I really liked some of the more original pieces of the soundtrack too, like the Luther Corp track on which should be called Lex Corp. That's one of my complaints of the movie. But,
no, I get it. Yeah,
but like the music you hear in the movie when the Hammer of Baravia enters the portal and then is revealed to be Ultraman. Like that, or like there's a track on there called "Upgrade." That when Guy Gardner shows up at the end to save that kid, when he's like, sorry kid, Superman was busy, so you're getting an upgrade.
Yeah, it's like a Justice Gang type thing, and it's there's so many great songs in it throughout it. That's just like the whole thing feels more memorable. The only thing that I'll give like not shade to so much is like like everything that would be there's nobody's ever pulled off a better love theme than John Williams so far, if that makes sense. Like there's just that Lois Lane love Superman ballad is just so iconic. I can't think of anything better than it. So that's one of the only things. But again, you can't beat John Williams at that. He's so good at it.
We could do a whole show just talking about the
music,
maybe we should. If anyone wants to hear that, let us know. But yeah, we could do like a whole show just talking about the music of this movie. But just overall like general reaction. Like I was going into this movie with pretty high hopes. They didn't seem that high to me just because like I have so much confidence in James Gunn, and so many things he was saying I felt was preparing me for what I was about to see here. A lot of his creative choices, I was the whole time we've been hearing about this movie like, that sounds awesome, I'm ready to see it. That sounds awesome, I'm ready to see it. And so I walked into the theater hoping that, of course, that I would see like the best Superman movie ever. But my expectation was that it would be my favorite of all the ones that have come out in my lifetime. Not a very high bar. Superman 4, Superman Returns, and Man of Steel were all, I thought, very beatable. So I walked out of the theater like, yes, that is definitely my favorite Superman movie. I think I might even like this more than the original 78 classic, just because this is such a more specific depiction of Superman from like the character in the comics that I grew up with. I love seeing him with like this other community of superheroes. I love having like the Lois who's in on the secret and part of the adventure, and so things like that. And I'm having a hard time thinking of like, when was the last time I saw like a solo character superhero movie and liked it as much as this. So time will tell. But like I walked out of the theater with the movie. I think it met my really high expectations and possibly, met my really high hopes. But yeah, it took me a couple of viewings before I was sure about that. But it is such a rewatchable movie. I love the pacing. I love how it can get so much done in 2 hours. Like, I like that 3-hour Matt Reeves Batman movie. I kind of had to like watch it a few times to really start to respect it. But I felt like I saw so much more in this 2-hour movie than is in that entire 3-hour movie.
Yeah, me and you had a very different set of expectations than most people. One is because we've had this podcast and we've been staring at this thing dead in the face
Yeah,
for months.
been thinking about it every day for a long time. So.
Like we had a calendar that we would just check, and like a picture and a grail area for Gunn and David Cornsweet and everybody type of thing. Like we were just like we were just chomping at the bit for this thing. So we knew like every little thing that Gunn had said, Cornsweet had said, Nicholas Hoult had said. So our expectations were super high. Kind of stupidly high, to be honest, but that's because we had such great faith in Gunn. I haven't seen a James Gunn movie I haven't liked. Like even going back to like his most insane shit, I've always liked it, even how insane it was, sort of thing. And sure, I would never watch Romeo and Juliet again, but hell, I still had a good time with it, type of thing. So like I came in and I was like, yeah, you said the same thing. Hoping it would be better than anything else that came out in my lifetime for Superman, and honestly for DC in the past since Man of Steel came out.
I mean, again, not a super high bar. Like that's like a very doable thing. That's a doable ask.
Like the last time I walked into a DC movie and I was like, that was all right, was Shazam, and that's not exactly the highest bar. The thing was like barely the mid bar thing. And so so I came out of this movie I was crying constantly as it progressed. The thing that I haven't figured out yet, since I haven't watched it as many times, is I don't know if this is my number one or not yet. I will say it's my favorite version of Superman himself, though, when it comes to the movie ones, more because of the fact that because he seems so much more relatable than the other ones. Because as much as I love Christopher Reeve Superman, there's too many things about him throughout the Donnerverse that's too like, okay, I can't be with you on there type of thing. Specifically his relationship with Lois. So seeing an actual like relationship between Clark and Lois, and that he doesn't sit there being like, but Lois, my parents type of thing. It's like no, like he's like, this is my life and I love you and I refuse to let go of this. And I'm like, yes, this is what I've been wanting this whole goddamn time.
And he never has to lie to her.
No.
Like, Christopher Reeve lies to Margot Kidder for years about not being Superman. I get, that's part of the secret identity, but I want to move past that. And the comics moved past it freaking 30 plus years ago. It's, about time that the movies do too. So yeah, it was so refreshing. Like that moment when he shows up in her apartment and they're kissing, and it's clear that like they've been together for months, and she knows that he's Superman, and it's like it was so refreshing to be like, I don't have to see this Clark Kent lie to this Lois Lane.
No, and it was so nice that when she showed up, he wasn't wearing his glasses. He wasn't wearing a full suit. He's very laid back. His shirt's a little buttoned up, a little opened up, his sleeves are rolled up. He's just there as himself for once. It's one of the few times he feels like, because it's something we talked about. It's the third personality in our opinion, which is it's himself. It's the only time anybody can see him like that is with Lois or with his parents, and that's kind of it. Like you'll never see it outside of that. Like you can be hanging out with Clark Kent all day every day at like say like freaking Pizza Hut, and but you're not hanging out with the third personality. You always will be hanging out with the persona Clark Kent, that has to do everything every now and then. Like, could you imagine being Bruce Wayne, being like, "Hey Clark, let's hang out," and then you're just there, and you both have to like really pretend you're bad at things, sort of thing. Like you go to an arcade, and Batman's just like desperately trying not to like 100% every single thing, and Superman's just like, oh whoopsie, I accidentally moved the crane wrong, type of thing. Like it would drive me crazy if I knew both of them were like better than that. I'd be like, you guys need to fucking quit it. Type of thing. Like I bet you Lois thinks that every time she's out with Superman, whatever they're like out about, she's like, oh, there's Clark pretending to drop his coffee again. God damn it.
I guess they don't really spend a lot of time with the persona Clark Kent, kind of like the performance he puts on, the mild-mannered reporter. But you like I was saying, like the movie is very fast paced and they pack a lot in 2 hours. And if you're watching those early scenes of the Daily Planet, it is there, him trying to not draw any attention to himself. He doesn't look people in the face. He's just trying to blend in, even though he's like this big, bulky guy. He's got like the suit that's too big. Oh, that is like one of my disappointments. We never see him like transform from Clark Kent to Superman. He never like unbuttons the shirt or anything. That's something we talked about. Like, is it gonna be like New 52 where he just has like the big S shield he puts on his chest and the suit grows out of that or whatever? But
Yeah, they never really say, even when he's when you finally see him outside of it later on, and then he goes to become Superman. They just allude that, hey, I'll get your stuff real quick, and then you never see him put it on. You don't even see the way the '90s show did it. You remember how they did it? Is he would just spin, and then after he was done spinning, he would just be Superman. Like, we didn't even get that. Like, I would have liked to
spin a lot.
Anything. He
spins
like crazy.
a lot in this movie.
There's a lot of spinning. A lot of spinning. No, yeah, that is one of the only disappointments I have with it. Because even when he comes home mid movie, he's just beat up, dressed like Superman, and he's just sad, which is fair, for what has happened in before that sequence has happened. Yeah, I don't feel like you see that enough of him, or you don't see enough of the Clark Kent persona. I feel, which is a shame because I was hoping to see more of it.
Yeah, that would be what I don't have many complaints about this, but one of them would be that like I would have liked to have a little bit more Clark Kent. I would like to have more of just the Daily Planet as a whole. Like I felt like there might be like a deleted scene with Ron Troop, but like he did nothing. At least we got like
he
a
makes
little
a call.
Cat Grant. We got like a little Steve Lombard.
We actually got more Steve than we did than the other two, is what I feel like.
Which doesn't surprise me because he has the most like comedic value.
Yeah, because the first time because when they finally show everybody, Ron makes a call, and it's right after the message thing happens. I'm sure we can pretty much just talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But Ron just calls somebody, like, so what's going on with the government or something? I think is what he says, and that's it. Like, and then Kat just asks Lois about her relationship that she's doing. He's like, oh, what's going on with that? And where Steve is like, Clark walks in, Steve talks shit to Clark. And that's fun. And he has another jab at Clark. Like, Steve has a lot that he says in the sequence that Clark is there. And then he's got that great comedic moment where they're all on Mr. Terrific ship, and he goes, "How come I don't get a seat?"
But I think his funniest moment in the movie is shortly before that when he's in the Daily Planet office freaking out on the phone because they're evacuating the city, and he's yelling at someone to put his cat Persephone on the phone. And he's like put her on the phone, like don't tell me that like cats can recognize the sound of your voice, like don't tell me she doesn't care, something like that. But
it's a really sweet moment because he's just like, he wants to tell his cat he loves her in case something goes wrong. And it's kind of adorable, Steve Lombard doing that, because Beck Bennett is so fucking funny. That the second they announced that he was going to be Lombard, I'm like, this is already perfect casting, and I can't wait to see what they do with it.
We need a Daily Planet TV show on Max, like Jimmy Olsen, Ladies Man, and his wacky adventures at the Daily Planet.
I'd watch this. I'd watch that whole show if it's just about everyone else and Clark just happens like to be in the background a lot. I'd be perfectly fine with that. Like, it doesn't even cut to Superman stuff. It just cuts to them reporting stuff, like them in Suicide Slums or something like that.
I totally assumed that is Suicide Slums, by the way, that back alley that Jimmy went to go meet.
That was my first thought too. That was like, oh, that has to be Suicide Slums. Where else is Lex not going to be paying attention?
But yeah, I guess like just to bring up complaints, because it was like one of the few complaints I had was like I would have liked more of the Daily Planet. I would have liked more of Clark Kent as Clark Kent, and I also like the New 52 collar on the suit. When I saw the movie, it actually it bothered me a little bit more. Like I noticed it a lot more times than I thought I was going to. I still overall I love mostly what they did with the suit. It's one of my preferred live action Superman suits, but I could have done without the New 52 collar.
That's always been the issue with it. There was something I heard recently that makes me think that it almost was just going to be the New 52 outfit. Is that I forgot who said it, but apparently I think it was Gunn. Is it the Gunn or Kurt Sweat? Which is that the underwear decision was made just like a week before filming. Like they'd finally finalized they were going to do it, and with that in mind, I'm like, that explains so much about that suit to me, because imagine that suit without the trunks and maybe the belt might not being yellow possibly, and it would have just been the new 52 outfit, and I bet you that's what he was probably thinking he was going to end up doing, is just going all in, because Gunn was very hesitant at making the classic trunks appear. So with that in mind, I'm like, okay, well, of course the collar exists, because in his mind the trunks never were going to. Because in my head, the second those trunks appear, you take a scissors and you fucking go to town on that collar, type of thing. So yeah, no, I get it. But that's always been my complaint about the suit in general. And any version of the Superman suit, I don't know why you wouldn't need a collar in that suit. The collar on that suit just always makes it very awkward, type of thing.
But beyond that, there isn't much I would change in this movie. Like my biggest complaint that I've been saying is that it took so long to get a Superman movie like this. This is the Superman movie that I've been begging Hollywood to give me for 20 years. There were so many things I wanted to see Superman do cinematically. That and the big ones for me were like the two I mentioned, like having a Superman in that relationship with Lois where she knows that Clark is Superman and she's going to be a part of whatever the problem is. They're kind of like that couple that they solve problems together, and if something's going on with Lois, Clark is going to be involved. If something's going on with Clark, Lois is going to be involved. We finally got that, and that I think a big important part of Superman's character is that he stands out as like this great remarkable being, not just like among like a world of normal people, but even among like a big populated superhero universe like the DCU. And you really see that. You really see, oh, he is so special and unique even among all these other colorful costumed metahumans.
Yeah, that's always the thing about Superman that a lot of people, for some reason, fail to understand about him. Because a lot of people are like, "Well, he's just because the way his perception has been in the public for a long time, which is that he's the most powerful being there. So of course everybody's like, oh, look at Superman, he's the best because he walks in and blinks, and every criminal is like, I give up. It's like, no, that's not. It's not why he's remarkable. He's remarkable because that in the DC universe there are superheroes that are in fact stronger than Clark in many aspects, whether it be because of magic, or whether it's because they have more powers in general. But none of them are as kind, as sweet, and willing to go above and beyond for not just the people he saves, but the people he fights. And that's one of the things that makes him so remarkable, which is all forward during the kaiju fight. Every single aspect about Clark is right there during the kaiju fight. He saves the dog. He goes out of his way to save that dog. He goes out of his way to save the little girl. He goes out of his way to save the woman. He goes out of his way to save a squirrel, type of thing. And then when everybody else shows up, his first thought isn't like, oh, thank God they're here to help me destroy the kaiju.
Mm-hmm.
His first thought is to go up to them and he'd be like, hey, I'm glad you're here. Help me figure out how to get the kaiju out of the city so we can figure out what to do with him alive, type of things. Like I figure we could knock him out, study him, figure out what's wrong with them or something, get them to be peaceful.
He's advocating for the monster that he's in a fight with.
Yeah, and Mr. Terrific is just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, we don't have time for this. He's like, he's destroying things. He's like, I know, I get that, but maybe he's just mad about something. Like maybe we just talk to him, type of thing is what it feels like. Also, by the way, fun fact: the squirrel is a real squirrel.
Yeah, I just learned that today.
I saw the back. Did you see the behind the scenes image? The same one I did. I see him. It's like in a little.
Yeah, in like the glass box.
Glass. I found out this is actually a true story of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. If people don't know this, it's a very, very famous fact. It was actually cheaper to use real squirrels in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory than it was to CGI them. So they trained a bunch of squirrels to open those nuts for that scene. And so I think that's the same thing that happened here, is that it's literally cheaper to use a real squirrel than the CGI squirrel.
Huh. Well, I mean, they had a lot of CGI personnel busy on crypto, I'm sure, because there's a lot of crypto shots in this movie.
Oh, there's tons of them.
But speaking of that kaiju scene, that squirrel moment in particular, I really enjoyed that in and of itself, just my experience of it. But then later, my girlfriend Taylor, who saw the movie with me, told me that she loved that moment so much because she knew how much I wanted a Superman who would do shit like that, who would like take time to save a squirrel in the middle of a kaiju fight. And she was telling me how like that made her so happy for me that I was finally getting the Superman movie that I want. But with the kaiju, when even like at the end when they do kill it off and he's watching it die, he watches those T spheres explode inside of its stomach with his X-ray vision, and it's almost kind of like that birthright Superman that Mark Waid came up with in the comics. That idea of like he sees like this glowing aura around living beings. Like he sees like the light go off when you die. And
Yeah,
like
he's very disappointed in that scene. He's just like, well, shit. It's like he's outnumbered. He can't outvote the Justice Gang essentially. It's a shame that scene happens to him, at least. Like to him, he's like, I can't believe this. I can't believe we've done this type of thing.
but it really illustrates how like with his like heightened senses, he almost has like heightened awareness of like like life and death is like it's more obvious to him, like when like a life comes to an end. It's harder for him to ignore it or not see it. So then shortly after that in the movie, when a human being is so brutally killed in front of him, and like and how like heartbreaking and gut wrenching that is, and David Cornswett's reaction to that. But it's like yeah, like he like when you die, like he sees that, like he sees like the brain stop working. He sees like he hears the heartbeat stop. It's like so apparent and hard hitting to him.
That scene, I wasn't thinking about it until somebody said it to me recently, or not to me, but I think it was on Threads. I was reading it, which is that scene is the moment Lex fucks up, because up to that moment, Lex has been on top of everything. Everything's planned out to the exact T that he needs it to be done until he fucks up because he forgets that Metamorpho is a person.
Mm-hmm.
Which is that like if he had just like not had killed that guy and just be like, oh, I was just bluffing type of thing, Metamorpho would have been like, oh, I get it, and then he just would have kept the kryptonite on him the entire time. Instead, he gave Metamorpho a reason to quit fucking around, because Lex just like does not understand how people work. He just assumes everybody has the same thought process as him. So when that happens, that's the moment he actually fucks up and just ruins his plan. Because if it wasn't for that, his plan probably would have kept going off without a hitch.
What was your reaction to that scene? Because like a lot of people told me like that made them cry, that made them tear up. It stirred some big emotions out of me.
It didn't make me tear up so much but I was shocked because I was surprised he did it, kind of thing. Because as much as we were like, I can't wait to see Lex be, like a villain, like a villain. I was still just like, oh, he's probably gonna do this for a while, and then like eventually he's gonna get so upset with Clark or something. He's just gonna be like, I'll just come back with more people, type of thing. But I didn't expect him to like kill him right away. You know what I mean? I was expecting that scene to last a bit longer to add more tension. But it's actually more shocking that it happened so fast.
Right on the second pull of the trigger.
And that Lex's reactions is like, well, fuck. Like I had a whole thing. And now and it's almost like Lex is disappointed that his plan didn't work more so than he expected. And I was just sitting there like, oh my God, like he just shot that guy in a cold-blooded way and then didn't even like feel bad about it, so much more that he felt bad that now he has to go find another person.
Right, he was disappointed it was over so quickly.
Yeah, he's like it was the moment. It's like a moment when somebody like drops a quarter down like under a vending machine that they were trying to get something from. He's like, oh fuck, I should, instead of being like, oh no, like I've killed a human being, he's like, oh man, I should have brought more people to shoot in front of him. I put all my eggs into this fucking falafel vendor. Fuck, I gotta go get another guy to murder. I'll be right back. Type of thing. It's just like, what the fuck is going on?
That Russian roulette type of scene, like that is kind of played out. We've seen that in a lot of stuff. But the thing that they normally do wrong with that is they'll have it go on for like way too long, and like, okay, come
Yeah.
on, like eventually, like you're gonna shoot somebody if you keep doing that. And so I think the audience watching that scene, you don't expect it to just only be two pulls of the trigger. You think like, okay, it's gonna take like a few shots before anything actually happens. So on the second one, you're like, oh wow, they're not messing around with this movie.
Yeah, I've seen so many scenes like that in other PG-13 movies that they play around with it, and usually it doesn't. Usually it doesn't end up going off, or when it does, it's moved at the last second. So that was something I was expecting. Was not. That's not so much hoping as I was like, you know what? If I had written this movie, this is what would have happened, which is that like maybe Clark would have made a quick movement that would have caused Lex to like flinch, and then the gun moved and they fired in a different direction, type of thing, and then the guy saved. That's kind of what I was expecting in some ways. And again, if I wrote this movie, that's what would have happened. And then him being like, oh, we'll try this again, and then something comes up, and then he leaves or something. Like what probably would have happened in like a cartoon version of Superman. You know what I mean? Like if this was like an Adult Swim show, that's what would have happened, or something. But instead, Gunn's just like, no, these stakes are real, and it's happening. That guy fucking died, and I was just like, oh my goodness. Like, I remember being just sitting there being like, wow, it's like, is he gonna get somebody else? Like, what's gonna happen here? And then there's the joke. It's an accidental joke, which is Lex being like, well, I'll get that reporter that you seem to hang out around all the time. The trailer makes it seem like he's talking about Lois, but then he goes, yeah, I'll find Clark Kent and shoot him in front of you. And I was just like, started giggling to myself the second he said that, and like it kind of brought the tension back down for me, just because it's like, well, good luck trying to find Clark Kent, dude.
And then it also sets up that amazing action sequence with I can't believe I'm still like in disbelief by it, but yeah, I got to see like a Superman deal with like crazy sci-fi concepts, like an anti-proton river flowing into a black hole. Like I love that Silver Age cosmic weird ass sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, no other Superman movie would have done. Well, not no other, but no other modern Superman movie was going to go there.
Yeah.
Ironically, the one that would have done it is Superman 3, but purely because it would have looked dumb as hell, type of thing. Like I could imagine Superman 3 or Superman 4 doing it, and he's like in a river of Jello or something. You'd be like, look at all that proton matter or whatever.
But that's something that I think about a lot with these superhero adaptations. Is there are things that like, okay, well in the comics they would have done this a little different, or like they wouldn't have been scared to do this, or like in the movies they do things a little different. Like one thing I'll say about like the MCU, like a difference between like their movies and their comics is, a lot of times they'll have, a conversation between the Avengers, and it'll be Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., standing around talking in like their civilian clothes. I'm thinking about like, yeah, like no comic book artist would want to draw this. They would just be like in costume as Iron Man and Captain America having this exact same conversation, but just, the comics tend to be a little bit more, visually spiced up like that, But as I'm watching this movie, and now that I've seen it 3 times, I still think about this, and like I can't think of anything in this movie that they would have done different if they had just made this into a comic. Just some of the the bigger than life types of choices, like the Metamorpho just becoming like that floating head, or
there's so many things of
the Lex like bridge office that can like detach and become a hovercraft and just stuff like that. Those are things like the comics would just casually do, and like this movie just feels like, yeah, the audience can keep up. Like we can just keep throwing this stuff at them. We're not gonna spoon feed.
A great example of that is the kaiju, in my opinion, because they're like, yeah, we're gonna go to the base or to this fortress of solitude. I'm like, well, what's gonna keep Superman from finding out? He's like, oh, I got a bit of diversion. It's just a bunch of guys, just Otis Berg and the other guy, I forgot his name, show up in a van, throw a baby kaiju out of a van, and be like, he's kind of smart, yeah, he'll grow, type of thing. And then it cuts to a giant kaiju. There's no explanation for where the baby kaiju came from. There's no explanation for why the baby kaiju got bigger. There's not even a moment where you see the baby kaiju slowly get bigger. It's just like the next day, that thing is gigantic.
Yeah.
And the movie's just like, what, you want me to explain that to you? No, I'm not doing any of that. Watch him fight a kaiju now. And in a comic book, that's absolutely perfectly fine. In a movie, that if you're not ready for that, you're going to be very confused.
And this was the kind of world that I think Gunn was always trying to depict in his superhero movies. You know, like in Suicide Squad, they don't really like explain why all these anti-heroes have like these big personalities and these colorful costumes. It's just a normal thing for there to be a guy named Javelin in this colorful costume, or this guy named Peacemaker in this colorful costume, or freaking Polka Dot Man, you know. And so like this movie shows that like, oh, in this world, like shit like this has been going on for hundreds of years, and you actually see some of that history in that Hall of Justice building.
Yeah, I was telling somebody about that recently because I was talking to our mutual friend Randy, and we brought up because he'd seen it twice already by the time I saw him, and I asked him if he noticed that the Hall of Justice has a mural on it that shows so much of the history of the DC universe just out in the open, but it's never like pointed at. There's never a moment where Guy Gardner is like, "You're in the Hall of Justice, lady," the place where the Flash has been or something,
Yeah.
like pointing to the mural. It's like, no, it's just back there, and that's another aspect of a comic book that would happen, that they wouldn't stop the comic book to like have Mr. Terrific longingly looking at it, going, "Man, I remember when heroes were heroes," type of thing. Like, there's nothing like that. They're just they happen to be hanging out in a place that apparently has a lot more history than even we have been told, and I think that's so much more interesting because the world is lived in. We watched this movie. It's not like Man of Steel where we don't know that Batman exists. It's not like Batman v Superman where somebody stops the movie to pull up a series of videos with people's logos on them to point out that, hey, these other people exist somewhere. Perhaps you'll see them in a movie. It's like, no, like Superman exists. The metahumans have existed this entire time. The Green Lantern Corps is the thing that Guy Gardner just sort of says. Mr. Terrific has clearly been doing this for a while. The Hall of Justice clearly was not built by the Justice Gang. They just have been like, doing things to it, is what it felt like. Like, it's so lived in a way that I wasn't expecting, and was so fun. And there's one thing that it does that a comic book would do. Actually, it's not even that a comic book would do. It's what a person reading a comic book would for the first time would do, which is the one of the greatest things that James Gunn ever pulled off, which is the way the movie starts. Which I'm sure you agree with me on this. The movie starts mid-action. Superman has just got his ass beat for the first time in his life after creating an international incident, and we don't see any of that. There's not even a newscast that shows Superman doing any of these things or him getting his butt beat originally. Well, because there's so many other things where that's what would have happened. You would have seen like the newspaper being like, Superman did this, and you would see like a picture of him doing something that's probably part of it. But it's because of the way it is now, you feel like you just picked up issue 3 of like a 6 or 7 part story type of thing, because you're reading the previously on page where it's like, Superman's been around, Superman's been Superman for 3 years, Superman's caused some shit to happen, and then he got his ass beat like a few hours ago.
But yeah,
it's just like, it's the only time I've ever seen a movie willing to go that way, and I think that's so much more fascinating than I expected.
It's totally the experience of like, oh yeah, just picking up an issue of a comic series off the shelf and just like, okay, page 1 begins like right after a fight that was in like the last issue, and jumping into the story that way, and jumping into a story that's populated with a bunch of other colorful characters that you may or may not know everyone's backstory or origin, but it's really like that experience that we would commonly have in the comic world, but just translated to a big mainstream audience movie.
Yeah, and I get, and here's the thing, it's one of my only closest to complaints, because it's like, I kind of wish I would have saw the Hammer of Bolivian first show up. Same with him actually doing the international incident. I wish it started where the international incident happened, and then him getting to his fight. But the fact that it didn't, I'm perfectly fine with that, because it adds to the mystique and the feel of reading a comic book type of thing that everybody has had at some point, at least prior to the internet. So I just think that's interesting.
And I heard someone else say this, and I think it's very accurate. But like what they did with like the Marvel movies and the MCU, and starting off with Iron Man and such like a grounded, realistic movie, and then kind of expanding from that, is that with that Marvel approach, they took the the big superhero comic book world, and they started in our real world and kind of built toward that, and like kind of used our real world to explore that setting. Whereas with Superman and what it appears Gunn is doing with these DCU shows and movies is that he's more, instead of like taking our world to that superhero reality, he's taking like that bigger than life heightened superhero reality and bringing that to us. It's like it does feel like a, and that is how I think with the comics, DC and Marvel traditionally are and probably should be. But Marvel does feel like it's a bit more real. Peter Parker lives in New York City, and DC is a bit more like it's not quite the same place. Like the punk bands are a little different. There's some band called the Mighty Crabjoys that I've never heard of. You have Metropolis and Gotham instead of New York City. So it does have that. It's a little bit more of kind of like an alternate world, alternate timeline almost.
Yeah, that's the thing I like about Gunn whenever he does anything, because in the Suicide Squad, sorry, in the Suicide Squad, you're taken to a country that doesn't exist with beings that you don't think you would ever see in a Snyder movie, like King Shark, Polka Dot Man, stuff like that. And then when you watch Peacemaker has these great, they're quick jokes where he just starts bringing up random characters, because Peacemaker is like, I live in a weird world.
Yeah.
Like and a lot of times it's clear he's lying about them, the type of thing to make himself look cooler. Where he's like, yeah, the Flash is a giant asshole. Is like the Green Arrow addicted to brony stuff type of thing. But then he'll bring up something like, yeah, that time I saw Matter Eater Lad eat an entire Wendy's type of thing. And you're just like, he just brought up Matter Eater Lad like it's just normal type of thing. And that's the world that Gunn has always operated in. Gunn's just like, no, they exist. Like, he just starts bringing up people to be like, this is a weird world. They exist. We just don't happen to see them. And so this is the first time in a while that he's been given the budget to be like, yeah, this world is weird. We're not just in Kansas. We're in Smallville. There's a difference. We're not just in Delaware. We're in Metropolis. And then, whenever Batman happens, it's like, we're not just in New Jersey. We're in Gotham. Like, that sort of thing. He's like, these aren't the worlds you're thinking. Like, we can't go outside and just walk and take a trip to Metropolis. Whereas in the Marvel universe, we can get in on an airplane and go to New York and see the building that Spider-Man stood on, type of thing. But we can't go visit Luthor Corps. There's not going to be a building where that will happen, type of thing. Like, that's half the fun of the DC universe, is that weird stuff happens. We're gonna see giant kaiju. We're gonna see a dog with a cape flying around. We're gonna see a guy making giant glowing middle fingers to defeat vehicles. Like, that's normal in this world. And my problem with the rest of the DC universe is that, at least not the universe, but the DC cinema media, is they forgot that. And the only time they didn't was when you watched Aquaman. The people who made Aquaman were like, no, this place is silly. That guy's riding a seahorse into charging in the battle. Like, it's the only time somebody was like, no, we're silly, and we should embrace that.
Yeah, you have to embrace it. Yeah, don't be embarrassed about it. You have to be like Superman in this movie. Like, he doesn't try to make himself look cool. He's just like, I'm just gonna like go out there confidently and do what I think is the right thing, and people will react how they react. And if you're the storyteller, that's how you have to be with some of these ridiculous concepts, like a flying dog in a red cape. Like, just embrace it. Just lean into it.
Yeah, you lean into the fact that Crypto, the goodest boy, is a thing that exists, and that Crypto, being the goodest boy, would chase flying balls in the air because he thinks it's a game. That's why you think he would. And if anyone who's ever owned a dog knows full well, if you're laying down, that dog is just going to jump on you no matter what type of thing. But the difference is that when Crypto does it and your normal dog does it, it hurts 10 times more type of thing. And Gunn knows it better than anyone that he's like, this is a dog. He acts like a dog, but this isn't a normal dog. This dog has superpowers. And he looks you dead in the eye and asks you and dares you to question it. And nobody else would do that nowadays. No one. Everyone would find it silly. I saw concept art for them considering using Crypto in Injustice 2. It was the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. And because somebody in another realm was like, Crypto's too silly. What if we made him look like a dragon thing? And you're like, no, you do not do that. Where James Gunn's like, no, I'm going to have a bunch of monkeys with slightly bigger brains on a keyboard writing super shit to piss off Clark. And again, he looks you dead in the eye and goes, I dare you to say something.
I wonder what inspired that choice. What a weird thing for James Gunn to put in this movie. A lot of brainless monkeys talking shit about Superman all day.
James Gunn, I was talking to somebody about this recently, that somebody's like, I feel like James Gunn was getting out his, like, getting canceled when he got fired off of Disney at the time. It's like, I feel like he was getting that out of his system to be
totally.
like...
Lex calls Superman a groomer in this movie. He says he was sent here to groom us.
The funniest thing about the soundtrack is one of the tracks is called Secret Harem, and it's that reveal.
but
I was like, that's the name of that track.
Speaking of James Gunn and the soundtrack, one of the things I was so interested in this movie is like, oh, James Gunn, there's going to be like some big needle drops, right? And there's not really, and I'm fine with that. I love what they did with the Williams music, but Gunn said in interviews, I believe it was on the DC podcast that's on HBO Max, but he mentioned that I wouldn't call it a crutch, but I rely on those songs a lot. I'll write scenes to songs and stuff, so it's kind of a very different process to not depend on that so much in this movie. But the songs that we do get in here are fun, like the Mr. Terrific sequence.
I think they're all original songs though, which is what makes them different. Is that is the biggest needle drop in the entire film, is the Mr. Terrific one. But I think it's an original song. Like, it's called Noah and the Five Whales or something.
That's that song's been around though. Noah and the Well. That's the
okay.
That's the band, right?
Oh, I don't remember. I just remember being part of the soundtrack.
5 Years Time is the name of the song. But yeah, that's a real band.
Okay, but it's even then it's like the only big needle drop, because the other one is the fake band.
The Crabjoy song. Well, there's
only like a minute long, and I was kind of bummed that it was only a minute long.
And there's that Iggy Pop song right when the end credits start, before the Mighty Crabjoys. But yeah, this is the fewest pop songs ever for a James Gunn project.
Yeah, it's fascinating the entire time. That the music needle drops are the way they should be. Superman themes. Like whenever he shows up and it's like, da 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 da, like it was so much fun because of it, because not enough movies have been using that correctly. Because that's the issue I've always had with as much as I love Hans Zimmer's Superman theme, you can't like quickly insert it into a moment where Superman saves the day type thing. But you can't
right.
do that with. You can kind of do it with Wonder Woman's theme that they had, but that's because you can do like a quick little rock thing when she shows up.
Yeah, that guitar riff. But yeah, you need like this little like character motif you can insert in those to highlight those special moments.
It's why I loved Iron Man 3 so much, because it before Iron Man 3 they were only just doing AC/DC songs, and then Iron Man 3 is like, here's a theme song for Iron Man, so you can get those little character moments, those little character motifs that he's sorely been missing, because Captain America was getting them, but Iron Man wasn't getting any of them, even though he was like their first big superhero. And then Spider-Man has them as well, because he has his new version of the theme that will pop up whenever he saves the day type of thing. And I couldn't tell you what any of the other DC themes were outside of Superman and Wonder Woman's in the Snyderverse that played the same way whenever somebody was saved, or whenever they showed up in general. And this movie has tons of them, and I'm very excited to see him do that to more. Like, I'm curious to see where the DC universe goes from here.
Yeah, and do we have like a lot of musical continuity? Like, do we get like
Yeah.
you know, if Superman shows up in, say, I don't know, Lantern season 2, will like, we have like a little like John Williams theme when he makes his appearance or something?
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious to who will show up in Peacemaker season 2 now.
I am pretty sure it's going to be Lex.
I hope so, because we
Because
know so
what
far we know that Rick Flag Sr. is part of it. We know there's going to be a scene with Maxwell Lord, which is another thing I was surprised by the way, is that Maxwell is only in one scene, and it's technically in the background in this movie, because he's in the trailer for Peacemaker season 2. Him, Hawk Girl, and I think it's a Green Lantern or Guy Gardner, and I think we're going to see more of Max in Peacemaker season 2 than we're going to see in this movie.
Yeah, almost certainly. Like there's as much of him in the trailer for Peacemaker season 2 as there is in this movie. So we've already seen just as much. But I think the next time we see Amanda Waller, we're gonna see Lex, because they have that line in this movie, get his bald ass to Bel Rev. So we know he's gonna be locked up, and we know that she loves to use incarcerated villains for her bidding.
Yeah, she's been missing, as far as I know, since the ending of Peacemaker season 1, at least based on what the trailer seems to be saying. And then Rick Flag Sr., he's the head of Argus now, so we'll see how that plays into some. I was actually expecting more of that to be used in here.
Yeah, you're right.
But it really wasn't.
Flag is not in it as much as I thought he was going to be.
And when he is, he's not what I thought he was going to be.
And he wasn't as big of a dick as I thought he was going to be. He is, I mean, like he's a cool dude in Creature Commandos, but he was still kind of a cool dude in here. You know, like when he's like arresting Superman, and he's like, you know, I'm sorry about this. By the way, you don't have any rights. We can lock you up and contain you indefinitely in our weird off the grid black site. No real life parallels there at all, you know.
It's
anything.
the way he does it that was interesting, because when Lex first comes in, this is one of my favorite things also that about James Gunn not explaining things, is that he explains the engineer and the Ultraman in like 5 seconds. Lex has a presentation to the government of essentially that might as well have been titled "Why I Should Be Allowed to Murder Superman without any repercussions" type of thing. That might as well have been his presentation. Which is just like, he's like, here's the engineer. I gave her a bunch of nanites, and now she's super deadly. Here's Ultraman. I made him. Let me kill Superman. Like, that's his entire presentation.
And you can get away with that in this world where there's crazy shit all the time. You know, it's a very busy universe. And I say that in like a good way. It's like, yeah, you can come up with like this whole like Planet Watch concept is just kind of, it's a small thing for this movie because of this world. Those things are so normalized.
Yeah, and I love the fact that when he does it, the government doesn't immediately go like, yeah, absolutely, we totally are behind you. Like Rick Flag and all them are just like, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, the public loves Superman. There's nothing that shows why we should be worried about Superman. Like, the dude is the nicest guy ever. Like, what are we doing here? Type of thing. And I like that Rick Flag was just like, when everything happened, Rick Flag Sr. was like, well, this is bullshit, right? Like, this is this is too sudden all of a sudden, right after we told Lex no. But like, and the other guy, like, he's not the president, but he's I always know him as like I know him as Albert from like Barry, because he shows up in that as well.
He's in a lot of
another
stuff,
guy
though.
from Barry, who was, and he's just like, look, I get it, but now the public is asking for things, for answers, and I want answers now, so let's let Lex talk to him, type of thing. Because in their brains, for some reason, they still think Lex is not going to do what they think Lex is going to do, which is why it makes sense that to them to do it. Although, again, like you said, Rick Flag has one of the weirdest moments ever where he's like, no one told me my rights. It's like, you're an alien. Like, it doesn't count.
but speaking of that, I won't LARP on this for a long time, because I could talk about it all day. But the politics in this movie really impressed me, and so much of it is like so topical, to the point to where, like, I'm pretty sure they added some of these lines of dialogue in ADR, like when Lex is giving Superman the tour of his prison, which is works very well as like a stand-in for CCOT. You know, like, oh, these aliens, these immigrants, they don't have any rights, so we can just ship them off to some weird place outside of the country where there's no legal jurisdiction or ramifications or consequences for us. But there is that line in there, like, I am renting my prison out to other countries. Like, if they want to send their political agitators here. When Nicholas Hoult says that, the camera is not on him. So I'm thinking, okay, they ADR'd some of these lines in the last few months because it's way too topical.
The fun thing about this movie is it's a great barometer. Is that the word I'm looking for? That for somebody's political ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen so many people be like, this movie isn't very woke, it's not very political at all. And I've seen a bunch of people be like, this is one of the most political movies I've seen in a while. Like, at least in like, but not in a bad way, like in a way that's like, it's injected in a way that's like much more interesting. And I think it's really funny because me and you see like some very obvious, like, it's not subtle. It's not subtle at all about a lot of the stuff that it's doing. But at the same time, if you ask somebody about it, they could just be like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's clearly made up a stand versus also made up a stand type of thing. Or me and you and then a lot of the rest of the world is like, so this is a parallel for something that's happening, right? And James Gunn's like, well, it wasn't happening when I wrote it. I'm like, James.
But they did some last minute changes when they were shooting, because they recast a character who, I guess, the guy who ended up being the president of Baravia.
That's right, yeah.
Who I thought he did like a really good performance, being this ridiculous president. I kind of felt like a flavors of Trump, but also I could just call him Putin Yahoo when I talk about him. But originally they were going to have that Egyptian comedian in the movie, and I think he was going to be the bad guy. And then I think last minute they're like, wait, like we don't want to make this movie about like, oh, the scary looking Middle Eastern guy is the villain.
Yeah, that's very much like once everything was going on, it was pretty obvious what was going on. And he's like, I need to make this guy less dark because people are going to take this the wrong way. And they still did, don't get me wrong. The only difference is it would have been way worse if he had done it as that guy. And in fact, the guy he got was to me, was better because of the fact that he's also creepy as shit looking. So it really adds to like the idea that this guy is weird. Whereas the other guy, I think would have played it like a normal type of world leadery with some comedy mixed in, where this guy is like, this is just that guy I wouldn't trust in a room by myself for like 5 minutes, let alone like
with the crazy
hair. leader of a country.
Well, go look up a picture of David Ben Gurion, and it's not too far off from that. But what I loved about the idea that they do make this DCU world, so different from our real life reality is you can't tell stories of Superman dealing with our exact same real life problems in a movie, because then, like, okay, those problems still continue in our real life. So, it's such like a break in reality to if you did like a Superman movie where, say, he does things like he does, stop the genocide in Gaza. He does stop the Russia invasion of Ukraine. He does, he deals with Yemen. He deals with Congo. He could do all that in fiction. And then in our real life, those problems still exist. So it doesn't line up with the fiction anymore. But if you create these fictional analogs, then you can tell more interesting stories about like our real life issues.
That's the reason why it's always worked in the DC universe more than it has in Marvel. Because in DC, when somebody brings up, Fake-a-Stan, like you don't question it. Like Superman lives in the city of Metropolis. But so you're willing to believe there's a place called Barovia, and when you watch Marvel, you're like Sokovia, and you're like, why is there a Sokovia type of thing? Like because everything in Marvel, most of it exists, type of thing outside of Latveria and a few other spots here and there. And DC has always been very good about that. Even in Superman the animated series, there's a great fake country. Let me see if I can find out what it's called. real quick because it's brought up right away too. I don't know why I can't remember. I used to have it memorized off the top of my head. Where is that thing? God, why can't I find it? Sorry. Sorry, guys.
A Marvel country or a DC country?
It's a DC country, but it's in Superman the Animated Series that, like, right away is used.
Morkovia? Is it Morkovia?
I think it's Markovia, but
Where
it's like
Geoforce is from?
no, it's this shows up specifically in the first episode of Superman the Animated Series. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Oh, I have Markovia on the mind because Markovia shows up on the map in this movie that shows Baravia.
Casnia. It was called Casnia.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Because it's the very first few episodes of Superman. It's like, or at least the pilot essentially. It's the first 3 parts of The Last Son of Krypton, which is that like Superman and Lex Luthor. He's talking about Lex Luthor. He's like, so like there's a country known as Casnia. The Casnia has been locking up and like eliminating his political opponents, or the guy, the leader there. So America has like cut off ties with them, and so Lex Luthor had to pretend that his war suit was stolen so he could sell it to Casnia without being tried for treason. And you don't even question that. You don't question that there's a place called Casnia in the DC universe because again, it's a different. It doesn't have to exist. Like. And so it's the same with Barovia. What is it? Janipur? What is it called? For the new one?
The
Jarhanpur.
Jarhanapur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
it's
how you
funny.
say it.
I've seen it in the movie 3 times, but I haven't tried to say it out loud before. But
yeah, I was having some hard time with it too.
That was in the Joe Kelly run of JLA. When they had like the ancient Justice League from 3,000 years ago, that was.
I completely forgot about that. But no, that's a great thing about DC is that you can make up as many fake countries as you want. You won't bat an eyelash because of the fact the DC universe is full of them. Whereas you have a harder time with Marvel because they
stick to reality. They stick to real life more.
So when they have to come up with a fake place, you're like, well, where is that? In the way your thing is. And in fact, I think it's like confirmed that the DC universe's world, like the globe itself, is bigger than the normal one because of all the fake countries in it. Because realistically, that's the only way you could explain that. Because you can't like just start placing, you can't just like start replacing countries with them. Because as far as we know, those other places still exist for the most part. So I think I still find that really fascinating that that's the thing.
But yeah, they did have some deep cuts in this movie with Jarhanpur. To my knowledge, only showed up in that JLA run that I read years ago, and I didn't even remember that was the name of the country till someone brought it up lately. But Baravia actually goes way back to the Golden Age days. That was like Superman #2, I think.
Yeah, like a lot of these fake countries get used. In fact, Casnia was used for a while, even though it first, as far as I know, it first showed up in Superman the Animated Series. But they used it a lot in the DC animated universe, and then in some of the DC movies, because it's actually not a bad fake country name, Casnia. And I feel like we're going to see more of those from the current DC universe. Because I don't even remember the ones in the Suicide Squad, because that was also another made up.
That was Corto Maltese. So
yes, which is a
Bane's
famous
home country. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a famous fake location in the DC universe. And I love that. I love that James Gunn is like, yeah, let's do that. Let's use.
He loves those fake countries because Creature Commandos, they're in a Pokistan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he loves the fact that like you can do whatever you want in the DC universe and you can't really get anybody mad at you for it, because if somebody asks you about it, you're like, look, this is just the story where one country is trying to take over the other country. There's nothing to look in. There's no reason to look deeper into it. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
And they're like, somebody's like, why did you wink? And he's like, I didn't say it.
If you change the status quo of a country, like have like a different like ruling regime in charge or something like that, it's a lot easier to tell that story with a made up country than with a real one.
Exactly. And there's another thing I want to talk about this movie that I feel like we haven't brought up as much as we should, is the fact that, the how kind Clark is overall. There's the great scene where Clark is talking to her, and he says, you know, maybe kindness is the real punk rock after all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, man, I don't know if you've seen this clip. I shared it on Facebook, but I don't know if I sent it to you. It's the Whoopi Goldberg clip. Have you seen that one yet?
I just watched it earlier today because you had shared it.
It's one of the most candid things I've ever heard in my life, which is the fact that she was watching the scene between Lois and Clark, and she was expecting him to like do something differently. Like she was expecting him to like, I guess, lash out or something. She was expecting something, but then it hit her that she's like, I forgot what kindness looked like, and that is one of the most interesting things I've ever heard, because it made me realize that as much as I love the Marvel Universe movies, I feel like even those kind of ran out of kindness after a while. And I don't mean that as in like oh, they're all dark and disturbing films. Like no, it's just that they got kind of gung ho with their killing type of thing. Marvel, Captain America, all those guys killed a bunch of people. Even Spider-Man was getting in on it after a while, especially when you watch like Infinity War or sorry, Endgame, when he's like activate kill mode and he just starts murdering all those aliens around him, type of thing. Where like No Way Home was the first time in a while that I'd watched a superhero movie seeing Spider-Man go out of his way to keep all of the villains alive. And it's something that I feel like is missing. It's missing from superhero films, is the hero's kindness and his willingness to like help everyone, and Superman has that in spades. And I just wanted to bring up that like this movie is Gunn's statement to the world that Superman is for not just for everyone, but Superman is kind, and he's there, he's your friend, and he's not going to show up the way Henry Cavill Superman shows up while things explode around him.
Yeah,
doing absolutely nothing.
He's not gonna like land in the street and make like this like giant crater where he lands, and you know, like there's like nothing graceful about like the Henry Cavill Superman. He's just like always like so like powerful and destructive. It's like, yeah, that's not this guy.
Yeah, every time he lands in those movies, it's like the hardest landing he possibly can do, like half the time. And then the ones that he does, and then like when he does save people, it's in like such a not violent, but you know what I mean, like a much more brutal way than you expected.
Yeah.
Like when you watch Batman v Superman and he slams that dude through a wall as hard as he can, and you're like, oh, he's alive. I'm like, are you sure? That dude looks like a guy. He died.
It either does that or it like so like romanticizes it, where it'll do like the Zack Snyder slow-mo and the camera's like looking up at him and he's framed like he's like a god, you know, like lowering down the astronaut rocket module thing, or like saving those people in Mexico, or like saving those people from like the flooded house, you know, like you would have like those Zack Snyder shots where you're supposed to be in like awe of this guy, but if that's all you get of him, it kind of comes off as like cold and
it's very cold,
detached.
It's very alien,
yeah,
it's very godlike, because whenever Clark shows up in those movies, your first thought is like, oh, God has shown up and he has graced himself upon us to save us from this flood. And then there's the one, and it's not even subtle when he shows up and he lands in front of all the Mexicans doing Day of the Dead, and they're all like surrounding him as if he's like God type of thing.
Yeah,
like,
it's very like it's like white savior kind of, like it's like everyone worship the gringo.
But... And that part always bothers me. And this movie understands that this isn't like a white savior type thing, even when he saves everybody.
He wasn't sent here to be a savior.
Yeah, he wasn't sent here to save everyone. Like at least he thought he was originally, but he wasn't. And when he finds out he wasn't, it doesn't stop who he is. And then here's the thing another thing that I find interesting about this is the immigration, the story of an immigrant going on with it, which is that this one is I don't know if it's complaint or not, so much as it's just that like the reveal of what Jor-El and Laura were saying in the second half of that message caught me so off guard. that I thought I was expecting the movie at the last second to tell you it was fake.
I
And
was
it
wondering.
never does. It never does. And I find that so ballsy because there's only one other thing that did something similar to this,
Was
which is,
Smallville.
well, Smallville, but not just that, but the Telltale Batman game. Because when you play the Telltale Batman game, there's a reveal in when you're playing it where they're like, no, Thomas Wayne sucked too. Like he was kind of a prick, and he was probably a gangster type thing. And the game never goes like, oh, it was a lie, like the way the Batman does, because the Batman tries for a second, and they're like, nah, it turns out that wasn't what happened at all. He's lying to you. And then you play the Batman, or when you play Batman Telltale, like, no, they'll let it happen. Like Thomas sucked, type of thing. And so Batman has to deal with the fact that his mission in life was about the murder of a guy who sucked, and then now Clark has to deal with something similar. He's like, "Oh, my parents had some fucked up notions," type of thing when they sent me here. And it's interesting because it was another thing that I saw where it was just like it's a great example of how you don't have to be your parents as well. Like you don't have to follow the toxicity of what your family thinks, type of thing. Like he moves past it, and he moves past and he's able to accept himself and accept his life without having to accept what their expectations was of him, type of thing. And I found that really fascinating. The only reason why I could see it as a complaint is because it kind of feels like James Gunn is telling him that he shouldn't accept his heritage.
That's a reasonable concern. That was something that I was kind of wondering about with the movie myself. But I would love to see, as we get more and more of the Superman, and with his cousin Supergirl, I'd like to see him have aspects of his Kryptonian heritage that he can connect to, and that he does like to embrace, so that are still part of his identity, or maybe somehow how he grapples with the revelation about his parents, but also the fondness that he has for his heritage, for his legacy. He had that whole fortress was assumingly built with Kryptonian technology. He wears the family crest on his chest. So, but I also really love whenever they're doing a new version of Superman. I think one of the important things to stress is that he is the person he is because of his Smallville parents, because of the Kents. They're the ones who raised him to be Superman.
His upbringing is so important for many reasons, and we've seen a lot of versions where his upbringing clearly has given him some bad ideas of what he should be doing with his life. And I'm not talking shit about Man of Steel. I'm talking stuff about there was if you guys have ever seen Superman and Lois, there's the reveal there's the evil Superman in the universe that John Henry came from, who wears a completely black suit and had took over the world. And they came out with a comic that explained his upbringing, and his upbringing was it sucked. He didn't have the Kents. He was in an orphanage. He lashed out. People didn't really take him. Nobody really took him into him kindly, and he kind of just became Superman, kind of just because he felt like he had to, more than that he wanted to, type of thing. And then and then there's the versions of, and then there's the backstory of his brother in that same universe, where Tal Rao, is that what Tauro? I'm trying to remember how it said. He showed up on Earth, was fucking immediately captured and experimented, and had a bad upbringing. So of course, and even his Kryptonian parents.
Yeah, his Kryptonian dad was a jerk.
So his upbringing caused him to be the way he was, and it wasn't until he really hung out with Clark and everybody that he's like, wait, I can be better if I wanted to, because a lot of it comes down to the fact that a person's upbringing can change what your choices are. And this movie does a great job of explaining that Clark's upbringing versus someone like Lex's. We don't know Lex's upbringing, but we know damn well whatever it was not great, type of thing. And we see that Lex would definitely make different choices if he had the powers of Superman. You can definitely see that in every version of Lex and every version of Superman. Without that upbringing, You get an Ultraman, or you get a Bizarro, you get Zod, you get any of those types of people. But the Kents are so beautifully done in this movie, and they're so real. That's the other thing. The Kents are just the most real I've ever seen the Kents, and they're also the most real I've ever seen a set of parents that are older as well. Because there's that scene, that's a great scene where they call Clark, and she's like on speakerphone yelling at the phone, and Pa's just there cleaning something at the same time, and they're just around the phone checking up on him. And it was adorable. It's so sweet. It's so wonderful. I also love the fact that Jonathan was more emotional. He wasn't stoic. They could have easily have done Pa Kent as the stoic character that's like no nonsense type thing. Like I feel like that's what Kevin Costner Pa Kent was. I even feel like that's what Jonathan Schneider's Pa Kent sometimes was a very like no nonsense type guy, almost, only because it felt like the only reason Jonathan Schneider didn't fully feel like that was because there's we had seasons worth where we could see the in between of him being a very loving guy, where this Pa Kent immediately was just like he'd cry at the drop of a pin type of thing. And I thought it was so sweet because it showed how much Clark gets his love of people from Pa in such a sweet way. Because he keeps because every time Ma keeps bringing it up, it's like, yeah, your dad, he gets super emotional, and then he's just, and the way that scene, just thinking about it gives me chills, where he's telling Clark, I'm just so proud of you, and everything is the choices that we make. It says everything we need to know about his upbringing in just that one scene.
And the portrayal of the Kents, that was something that the first time I saw the movie, I was like, well, they weren't in it very much. Now I know why they weren't in the trailers a ton. And then the second time I saw it, I came out of there thinking like, okay, am I sure that I like this version of the Kents? They're not quite like anything else we've seen before with them. And then after my third viewing, I was convinced. I was like, okay, they're more than just. One of the criticisms I see online is people say like, well, he just turned the Kents into like these simple bumpkins, but like no, they're not in it very much, but like their words ring true, like everything they say, and just that very brief exchange between Jonathan and Clark on the porch when he does tell him, like, hey, what you wanted that message to mean, it sure says a lot more about you than anything that someone else, some external party could have recorded on there. What really matters is what you do. What you, the guy who stars in Action Comics. It's about what you do. It's about actions, right? So that's. But he's just like so direct. Like this isn't like you're saying. Like he's not stoic. He tries to get to it immediately when he goes. He's kind of bullshitting with them at first, talking about like getting burritos down the road and whatever. But then when he's like. Hey son, there's something bothering you, and like let's talk about what it is. And he's so like, I mean, I guess he chokes up trying to get the words out because it is so emotional. But when he just like immediately went to telling him that he couldn't be more proud of him, and having Clark have that realization of like, yeah, this is why I'm Superman, because of these people on this farm. Not the Hollywood gorgeous actors who play my Kryptonian parents. It's these genuine, real-looking people.
That's another thing I never really thought about until you just brought it up, is that his dad is Bradley Cooper. Like Jor-El is Bradley fucking Cooper. I forgot who the woman who plays Lara is.
But she's from Westworld.
Let me see if I can find her what her name is real quick. It's in here somewhere. I love that one. Here it is. Angela Seraphine.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
And she's she's gorgeous. She's this very, very gorgeous woman who you're just like, yeah, I could see how those two would make someone like Kal-El type of thing. And then they feel unreachable. You know what I mean? Like they feel like the type. Like I didn't really think about it until you brought it up, which is that they are the Hollywood handsome, gorgeous people, and that Clark's just like, look at how amazing these two are.
Yeah, he has them like so romanticized, so glorified in his fortress.
And he's just, yeah, he's so like, these are what I should, these are the people I should be attaining to be, the unattainable, like Hollywood gorgeous people who tell me that my whole life was destined to be a good person, type of thing, only for it to, to all come crashing down. And like, yeah, I didn't think about the fact that his parents are so real compared to them. And then, and you know what, the other thing I thought was really nice about Clark's portrayal about his fall from grace, essentially, is he never freaks out. He never starts like destroying things. When he walks into that building right after everybody starts, immediately turns on him, by the way. That's one of my only other issues I have, is that everyone turns on him.
Well, Lex had all the trolls out there, though, pumping out the misinformation, so...
True, but like, yeah, it was when he walks into that building. Any other movie, a guy would have walked in there and slammed like the thing in like anger to be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this is happening." No, he walks into that building and sort of calmly puts his fists on the desk and just stands there, like defeated, pretty much.
Yeah, he's never like, "Oh, poor me." He's more like, what does this mean? Does it mean I'm a bad person? Am I dangerous to the world now? Like, he's even in that moment when he is so defeated, he's still so much more concerned about everyone else instead of himself.
Like, he doesn't lash out at anybody who starts getting mad at him, except for Guy Gardner, but it's more because Guy Gardner is able to do that. But he doesn't he doesn't smash the table. He doesn't start throwing things at the wall. He doesn't start yelling as loud as he can. He's in shock. He's in shock and he doesn't know what to do. But he's not angry about it. Like you said, he's like, was I sent here to do bad? Like, what does this mean for me? Like, what do I do? Like, do I do what they said? Do I all of a sudden, should I have a secret harem? Type of thing. He's like, what does this mean? Like, I don't understand. Like, I love that moment because it says everything about Clark. He's like, I've been so naive about this that I never once questioned that the other half of the message could have been, oh, by the way, kill them all, type of thing. Like, he just assumed everybody on Krypton was on the up and up. He just didn't think about it.
And I am curious how they're going to handle that with Kara, because, I mean, like, she probably knows her Uncle Jor-El. Like, she might be able to fill him in on some more details or something, but... Or they might be like, oh, well, she actually grew up in a different city and didn't really know them or whatever. I guess we have to wait till June before we see Supergirl to find out that stuff. But they also do have the option. They could retcon this. They could just be like, oh, yeah, Brainiac hacked that message while you were in transit and changed it or something.
I really hope that's what they're going to do.
I would be okay if they did that, but I would also be okay if they kept it like this, either way. If they kept it like the Smallville thing. When I was watching it, I was like, oh, are they going to do like Birthright? Where I might be misremembering. I haven't read it since it came out in like 2003. But Mark Waid's Birthright, I believe in there, Lex mistranslates the Kryptonian message that he was sent here to invade.
I think he mistranslates and he misunderstands what's going on with them, and then he uses it to his advantage.
Right.
It's been a while since I've read Birthright as well. I have it over there. I could grab it, but I would have to find the spot.
But I was wondering if they were going to do that, or if they were going to do the Smallville thing and just be like, yeah, well, Jor-El's kind of an asshole. And one of the things I didn't want was like the cold, sterilized, kind of lifeless, joyless Krypton. And I was a little disappointed when I saw this movie and we got like our first look at Jor-El and Lara, and they're just standing there in like all white. I was like, I kind of wish they, would be more colorful or something. But I love the message of the story being that it was his parents that made him into this hero, and that he wasn't sent here. It wasn't like the Jor-El Jesus thing, like in Man of Steel. Like Jor-El so loved the earth that he bestowed his one and only son to be our savior, type of thing.
Both versions of Jor-El were so like Jesus-y, or like God sending Jesus type thing. like because Marlon Brando is just like they could be a great like what's the word? They can be a great people.
Yeah, they can be
Is
a
that from
great
him?
people, Kal-El. They wish to be. They only
Yeah,
lack the light to show them the way.
yeah, that's a very famous line. And then there's the line from Russell Crowe's Jor-El where he's like, "You can save them, you can save them all," type of thing. And then there's a few other lines like that too. But they always leaned heavily into the idea that Superman was sent to be, the savior of everyone, the savior of mankind, and everything. Whereas with these, they were like, "Hey, do good. We sent you the place where you can do the most good, but also like we're all fucked. So while you're there, could you make a new Krypton?" like,
Yeah,
like is kind of what popped up.
get a secret harem and pass on our genes.
Like I found that so funny that Lara is just like just fuck as many people as possible, type of thing, and
By the
he's
way,
just like what?
Joel in our live audience points out Jimmy Olsen has the harem, so
Yeah, Jimmy Olsen with the old school Jimmy Olsen riz is the greatest reveal of anything that's ever happened to me.
did he make a deal with Mr. Mxyzptlk to make like all women be obsessed with him, or like what's the deal with Jimmy? What's going on there? Or
My
he was just born
opinion,
with it.
my opinion, he has that turtle man in him that he doesn't know yet that gives him a huge libido, and everybody's in for it.
I mean, I
'Cause-
could totally see James Gunn writing that into a story. We need that Jimmy Olsen spin-off show.
Yes, I want so much of that.
You could do
I
some
want
wacky
more Jimmy
shit.
Olsen. I loved everybody in this movie so much, and it was the first time in a long time I can be like, you see that? That's Jimmy Olsen. It's been so long since I've been able to say that, and it makes me so happy. Like I don't have to worry about the only other modern cinematic one got shot in the face.
Yeah. uh,
God, there's so much we could talk about with this movie, and I still feel like we barely even scratched the surface.
yeah, like we haven't talked about like any of the action sequences. Like I want to ask you about like some of the action sequences.
I will say
Uh,
this: the action was the most. I got so giddy, especially in the third act. I started crying. I did that. You know what that thing's? I don't know if you see me do it, which is I just put my hand like this on my face from just like, oh my goodness type of thing, and I'm just like, and sometimes like this where I'm just like, where I'm like trying to like hold back like a cry type of thing,
mhm.
and I'm just like, this is everything. Especially when he starts beating up the LexCorp Raptors when they show up, and he
Yeah,
just
when
fucking
he's
goes
doing
to
the
town on
spinning.
them, and it's so wonderful. And his fights with Ultraman, fucking like magical, because it showed everything about Lex that we needed to know about Lex. Was his obsession with Superman was so high, he fucking created something to fight Superman by giving it directions.
And that's very All-Star Superman. You know the opening where he's controlling that. He kind of has like his avatar on the spaceship by the sun, but he's
Yeah,
controlling all the movements from Earth.
like he wants him to know. Like as it progresses, he wants him to know. But in the beginning, it's fascinating just seeing him just be like A17, B5, and it's just rapid fire too, because he's just like, I know everything that motherfucker is going to do. Lex Luthor was in control 90% of this movie, and I find that fucking insane to me.
But he gets defeated at the end. I was kind of surprised that they actually like brought down Lex in the first movie, and I like that so much because one of the disadvantages of having like corporate Lex and the Sky Tower in Metropolis, running his corporation, is you kind of make Superman look weak if Lex can keep getting away with that. So I loved Superman having such a big victory in the end that he brings Lex down, that he has him sent off to Bel Rev to go appear in the Waller show or Peacemaker season 2 or wherever he's going.
Well, yeah, what I like about it is it reminds me of I think it was Justice League, the Justice League cartoon, where they finally take down Lex. They finally get his confessions and everything, and
Hmm.
he finally is defeated. Ever from then on, he's then full on the mad scientist, Lex Luthor in the DC animated universe. He never really goes back to being head of LexCorp after that. He's just always in and out of jail, creating war suits to fight Superman to the death. And I'm kind of hoping that's what we get in the future. Is
I
I
hope
want to
so.
see, I want to see Lex in a battle suit with his
I,
head just clear as fucking day.
but give him give him a couple of the scars from Crypto chewing on his head. Like I want him to carry that humiliation for the rest of his existence in the cinematic universe.
Man, the way Crypto fucked his shit up, I laughed so hard.
I applauded. I started clapping when I saw that.
I clapped as soon as it was done because I was laughing too hard. I was like, "This is so wonderful." Because I even brought it up to you once the movie was done because we messaged each other right after the first time we saw it, which is this is the perfect puny god moment I've ever seen. Because a lot of them tried to imitate that moment, but nobody's ever done it and correctly, at least until now, which is the moment where the bad guy is just like, "You fucking listen here, you little shit. I am the greatest. You will bow before me," and this gets fucked up right then and there. And the fact that it wasn't Superman and it was just a dog who got a little overzealous is the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen. And the fact that Clark is just like, "What the heck, dude?"
Yeah,
he's almost like, "I'm so sorry that happened, Lex. Are you okay?" Like that's almost what he's about to say.
If it was anyone else, he would have apologized. If it was like anyone who like he hadn't firsthand watched you murder someone, he would have apologized.
He was minutes away from doing it, to be honest. I feel like if the camera hadn't cut away, that's the next thing he would have been like, "Oh my god, are you okay? I'm so sorry."
But I thought the way that they made Clark so nice and polite, and like he doesn't swear, like he says like "what the hey" and "oh my gosh" and stuff like that. That wasn't an obvious direction to go with him, to me at least. But after seeing it, I'm like, oh, I love that. It is so fresh. It is refreshing to see, actually. But it is unique. He's like one of the few characters you can get away. Like he doesn't care. He doesn't care if he comes off a little corny sometimes. He's not here to look like a badass. He's just here to help.
The thing is, I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound very pretentious of me or very weird of me. The entire time I watched Superman, I thought literally me the entire time. Because, one, you've met my dog, and my dog is unruly. And you've also known me for a long time. I'm one of the few people who still says neat in a sentence. Like it's normal.
Yeah,
and
like,
to the point,
like 78 Clark Kent.
Yeah, I say stuff like that all the time. I say neat, and I'm like, that's kind of fun. Like, just weird. Like, there are times I don't curse for like whole days because of it. And my girlfriend has seen me say some not weird shit, but corny stuff. A lot of corny shit over the years, to the point where she just kept looking at me as the movie progressed. And she's just like, "I think somebody just made the Superman movie that you wanted by following you."
I love that both of our girlfriends were like, "Oh yeah, this was like the perfect Superman movie for you." So,
well, the funny thing was that there were conversations that Clark and Lois have that Sweet looked at me and I looked at her going, "We've had that conversation. We've had that exact conversation." Especially the one where Lois is just like, "You're just so trusting, and you expect so many people to be so nice," and I'm just like, "Yeah, we've had that conversation multiple times."
But that's the real punk rock.
And it's just so funny to me. It was such a, man, I'm crying thinking about it. It was such a breath of fresh air that I sat there, and it was the first time in a long time that I saw a Superman anything, and I just thought, no, yeah, we are Superman. Me and you, we all are all Superman. Like there's nothing godlike about him. He's a man who wants to do good, and that's been sorely missing from the cinematic Superman. Period. I don't even want to Christopher Reeve, as much as I like that guy, there's still something almost godlike about him that is almost unattainable, especially when it comes to the way he treats himself when it comes to being Clark Kent. Especially when you watch Superman 2 and you're just like, So when I watch this, I'm like, this is what I've always wanted. I've been trying to tell people for years, this is who Superman is. and for the first time, I
There's
feel
a
like
there's a
people are
movie
getting
you
it.
can show people. Be like, this is a great
Yeah,
example of Superman.
people are getting it. I saw online somebody was like, there's a Reddit thread that somebody put where they're like, hey, when I started watching Superman, I didn't start with Reeve, I didn't start with Brandon Routh, I didn't even start with Superman the animated series. He started with Man of Steel. He was a younger guy, but he was a big fan of the Dark Knight trilogy and stuff, and he thought Man of Steel was like, of course, like the next step of a superhero type thing because he was expecting that kind of lens to be used,
Mm-hmm.
and it was. And Superman, Man of Steel, is a deconstruction of Superman in a way that's like, I get why people like it. Don't get me wrong. I don't. It's not my cup of tea, but I have strong feelings about how much I like of it and how much I don't like of it. And he was saying how much he loved it, and then he was saying, he's like, yeah, I didn't really get Superman, and then he saw this movie and he's like, I get it now. I get what everybody's been saying. He went back and watched the Christopher Reeve one, went back and watched the other ones, and he's like, I get it now. I've been missing out on so much of what this character actually was this whole time. Because prior to this movie, the only thing I could show people that it could kind of get them to understand was My Adventures with Superman or Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. And Superman and Lois sometimes, but the problem with Superman and Lois is that as much as that stuff's there, it's more about the parenting than it is about
Right.
Clark being Clark. If
It's
that makes
not
sense.
it's not like a definitive depiction of Superman. It is a very specific here. This is Clark at a very specific point in his life that's very unique to the show.
Yeah, and it gets everything right. It gets exactly what needs to be right.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you have to take in a lot. That's not just Superman when you watch that show.
Yeah, you kind of already need to have a relationship with the character going into that show. It's not like a great way to like show someone who Superman is.
Exactly. So My Adventures of Superman is the shortest amount of time that you can show somebody what you mean, but it's still 2 seasons worth or not even 2 seasons. You can show them the first season, but that's still like 10 episodes of a television show.
Yeah.
That adds up to much longer than 2 hours. Where before that, if you show them the Christopher Reeve movie, you would get like mixed reactions. Either somebody would be like, I get it now, or they're just like, yeah, but that's exactly why I don't like him. He's a little too corny and he's a little too godlike, and I feel like he's not exactly there type of thing.
And that movie has aged. I love
Yeah.
it, but like like people have different sensibilities now than they had in 1978.
Even
which is normal
Superman.
and natural.
Even Superman has different sensibilities than he did then. Like everyone
Mhm.
does, and so it's harder. It's harder to be like, this is the definitive Superman. It's like he's not. He was for a while, and I get why he was for a while. But us as a culture needs to move past Christopher Reeve. We need to get past George Reeves, but we need to make sure that we celebrate the ideals that they exemplified. And I feel like Superman Returns and Man of Steel failed at that, and this is the first time in the cinematic DC world that they've pulled it off, and we're better for it.
Yeah, strong agree. And like you said, like there's so much more that we can talk about. There's so much more that we can unpack. I don't know what we should do next. We could just focus on some of the specific action set pieces, or we could do like a whole show talking about the Justice Gang. We didn't really talk about them much, or
We also didn't talk about the reveal of Ultraman.
yeah, or the not Bizarro.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if there's anything else that anybody has. I really want to know more about what's going on with that.
There's so many cool possibilities, though. Like, I heard someone else mention this today, but like that anti-proton river, it had like all those like little cubes that was flowing into the black hole. Like, what if now Ultraman goes into the black hole? What if like those cubes are somehow going to form like a cube world, and we're gonna get like Bizarro world in the future?
So I had a theory about that too, because everything in that world is square.
Yeah.
Everything in that world is cube shaped.
Yeah, all of the prison cells and everything. Yeah, you're
The prison stuff is cube shaped. A lot of the rocks are cube shaped. Like it was like Borderland, a Bizarro world that just didn't fully form yet, type of thing. So maybe you're right. Maybe one of these days we'll find out what happened to them, and maybe it formed a whole new world made
If
of
they
cubes.
if they did that, it'd be so cool because they're combining like the John Byrne Bizarro as a clone made in a lab by Lex, but also like the like no Bizarro comes from like an alternate reality where everything is bass backwards. You could have both of those things be true.
I would love to do that, and it would be great because we know he's dumb as shit. And so you could add the idea that like he slowly starts to learn how to be a person, but he learns wrong. And I think you can. There's so much potential with that thing, with that character, if you just write him brought back in the right way. And I think that's interesting.
But yeah, we definitely will have a lot more to say on this movie soon. But long story short, it sounds like it. Both of us agree it is the Superman movie we have been asking for.
Yeah, 100%. I give it 9 out of 10 only because, we all have their small issues with it. Because I don't, I'm still having a hard time figuring out if it's my number one or if it's my number two. Right now, though, I'm leaning towards number one, but it's tricky. It's very tricky.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it is gonna end up being my favorite. I don't know if at the end of the day if I'll say like it's a better movie than Superman, but I kind of feel like it is. I kind of feel like I mean the fast pace is something I really appreciate. Like I love like being able to get in and get out in 2 hours. Superman the movie, if you ask me, like it's a great film, little bloated. Like don't know if it necessarily needs to be 2 hours 20 minutes long, but
Yeah, it's tricky, and I've seen a lot of lists, a lot of people trying to figure it out themselves, a lot of rankings, some rankings that make less sense than me to others, but I'm not going to sit here and argue with why you like the Flash type of thing. It's like, look, I get that you like the Flash, but why is this even on a list of your favorite superhero things? So I don't know, it's the whole thing.
yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people love Michael Keaton as Batman. I get it, but uh, anywho, there's so much I want to say about Lex too. Like Nicholas Holtz's Lex. That is one thing I'm sure of. He is my absolute favorite live action depiction of Lex Luthor in anything.
100%. There's no one. I want to say there's no one better. There's no one better movie wise. TV wise, I have a hard time because every great depiction of both Superman and Lex Luthor, including the rivalry, has been on television until now. 100%.
And I can totally see that David Cornswet and Nicholas Holt, they both said that they grew up watching Smallville. And I see shades of that Clark and Lex in these characters.
Yeah, I remember Nicholas Holt was on Rosenbaum's podcast saying, he's like, yeah, no, you were who I watched growing up. And David Cornswet has mentioned, yeah, it's Smallville. Tom Welling was who he watched. And there's so much of those characters in there, and you can tell. It almost feels like an accidental continuation of that sort of rivalry between those two, but only because of the fact that you feel that sense in them. My favorite versions of them are always consistently the way those movies, or the way this movie portrayed it, where Superman is just trying to get along with his life, where Lex is just like, fuck that guy in particular. And I find that so much more enjoyable. And then I didn't even bring up, we should also talk next time what we got right and what we got wrong on our predictions.
Yeah.
Because we got a lot right.
Yeah, so not too surprised, but like you were saying, like we had been really paying attention to this thing for a while.
One thing
yeah.
I got right, I was not expecting to get right, and I texted you about it.
Oh, the real estate scheme.
I was so mad at the time, because for people who don't know, when the reveal one of the reveal of Lex's plan happens, one of the reveals is that the war is started because Lex is going to get half of the country to make his own new country or whatever. And I turned at my girlfriend angrily going, it's a goddamn real estate scheme. Because that, we remember when for you, if anybody watched it as well, when you said, what is one of your fears? My fear was that Lex's plan was a real estate scheme all along. But luckily, the movie was like it was not. That was his plan. That plan was his excuse to do his real plan, which was to kill Superman. And I was like, thank you, movie. Thank you for doing that for me.
That does work as kind of a nice homage to the Gene Hackman Lex, though. It's also another real world thing. Like if you talk to these billionaires, like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, you're like that's one of the reasons why they want Trump to invade Greenland. They want to have like their own their own country where they can set up their own rules and laws for their whatever corporate schemes they have.
Exactly, and it was perfect. It was absolute perfection.
But yeah, so we'll definitely be talking about this movie more soon. But people should subscribe to wherever you're watching or listening to us, and follow us, and be sure to come back for when we're talking more Superman 2025 soon. Let us know if there's anything in particular you want us to focus on. If you want us to talk more about the Daily Planet staff or some of the Luthor Corp characters. There were so many established characters, by the way, in that little office room where they were doing all the Luthor Corp stuff.
I love that everybody was completely on board Lex's plan to beat up Superman, and they were like upset that it was going wrong. And I was like, you know what, this makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if Elon Musk can get like a team of corporate pick-me's to go follow him and to be like, hey, we're just gonna go destroy Social Security today, and they're all like, yeah, let's do it, boss. So I think that rings true too. But yeah, definitely a lot more to unpack in here. So we'll be back soon with more Superman 2025 talk. But until then, as always, keep it super, y'all.